From the News Channel 5 Network, this is OpenLine.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to OpenLine. Thank you for joining us. My name is Nick Leonardo. I'm the News Channel 5 Legal Analyst. I'm sitting in tonight for Amy Rao, who's on maternity leave, and we'll be back shortly. This is a special segment we do on OpenLine, the fourth Sunday, the fourth Thursday of every month. It's called Ask a Lawyer, and it's where you, the viewer, get to call in with your legal questions and ask anything you'd like to ask. I mean, maybe you've been injured in an accident lately. Maybe there's, you have a child support issue. Maybe you have questions about a will, but we do everything we can to bring you competent attorneys, and tonight is no different. Maybe you know tonight's guest. Maybe you've seen his commercials. Maybe he's been your lawyer. Maybe you know him through his philanthropic work. But again, we have Kevin Kennedy tonight from Clarksville, and it's a pleasure to have you here, Kevin.
Always good to be with you, Nick. Look forward to this evening.
Well, so one of the things that I think about a lot of times when I'm watching TV and I see these legal ads, it seems like a lot of lawyers are asking about or advertising about motorcycle wrecks, tractor trailer wrecks, and these kinds of things. Do you handle those kind of cases?
Absolutely. It's the real world, That's where the big money is in accidents, and that's what drives the industry for people to get competent legal representation. One of the first things I like to address when they say, well, why should you consider a firm? Well, lots of times they have resources. We may have talked about it before, but you've got to have manpower. You've got to have resources. And, every time we hire an expert, the expert says, okay, if he's a little league expert, he's going to want $5,000 or $10,000. If you get a big league expert, you're going to start at $30,000. Well, who has those kinds of funds that they can put out? Because sometimes those car wrecks, the insurance company just doesn't want to pay for a period of time. But he who is persistent and he keeps after it, he will ultimately come out. And the odds are great. A lot of people don't understand this. 95% of all these cases are settled. What's the best way to get a good settlement? Is to advance. You just keep on advancing, take a proactive approach, file your lawsuit, file your interrogatory, set your depositions, and that's what makes them say, look, they're going to hurt us. See if we can get out.
Well, and there really is a difference, and I've noticed that in my practice too, and I've dealt with some personal injury cases, that if you have a lawyer that has a good team together,
absolutely, and
has the money to advance, because you could get $150,000 in from the lawyer's perspective on getting the case to trial.
Did you hear me? Nick, we did a TV show not too long ago with a race car, NASCAR driver, and that guy said, it's not always the guy with the fastest car that wins. And I was puzzled. He said, it's the guy that's got the greatest team. You could drive great, but one of your men just take just a 2 or 3 seconds too long to put the wheel on, you lost the race. And they say, like the Indianapolis 500, that first place and second place has been many, many times less than 1/10 of a second. For first place pays $1.3 million, second place pays $600,000. The law business is just right. The guy with the best team, he always wins.
Well, and let's also be clear too that you do you'll handle other non-tractor trailer kinds of injuries.
Absolutely. And we love to handle those kinds of cases for several reasons. Once you spend a lifetime trying to prepare, you want to use your expertise to share and help others who are in need. And it is more profitable many times to take on those kind of cases, and that's the real world. And that's why you see lots and lots of advertising on Channel 5 and around for trying to get those cases.
Well, folks, we have a few individuals on the phone lines. We're going to get to those phone calls, but you can call right now and ask Kevin any questions that you have regarding the law. The number is at the bottom of your screen there, 737+ or 737-7587. So let's get to a few of these calls.
Okay, yeah, they're lighting you up.
Sherman, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Good evening to you. What's your question for Kevin?
Well, this may not be in his territory, but how safe is your Social Security check?
Okay.
And some collection lawyer like Buffalo Associates take your Social Security check for you to pay a debt. Can a bank freeze a checking account when there's a Social Security check in there? I thought that was against federal law. Thank you.
That's a great question, Sherman.
The real world is, your Social Security check is basically should be safe. Now, when you commingle your funds in a checking account, then yes, those collection guys, if you keep that money in there, they're going to put a garnishment or an attachment for those funds and run an execution, and they would get those. Now, you could file your motion and say, wait a minute, those funds were only Social Security. So if I had judgments against me, I would try to outmaneuver the collection lawyers. And one of the things you might even consider is talking to some lawyers, and there are probably some safeguards that you could entertain that would protect you. But you're right on your assessment, sir.
Well, you know, that's one of the things that I get calls about quite frequently is people who have been sued
Yes.
and they have a judgment against them, and maybe they didn't try to deal with that on the front end. I think it's always a good idea to not just let it sit out there on the side.
Wow. We talk about it on this show. There's the doctrine of laches. If you sit on your rights, then many times you lose your rights. That's why we have statute of limitations, statute of frauds. The law is there to protect you. That's the theory behind the law. So you must learn about it. That's why we do this show, to try to teach you. And it doesn't hurt any of us. You know, in fact, when everybody understands the rules and plays by the rules, we have a wonderful society.
It makes it easier.
It makes it a lot easier.
Sure does. All right, I think here on line 2 we've got Rick. Good evening to you, Rick. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, what's your
Rick.
question for Kevin?
Hey, Kevin. I have a judgment against a business partner from the state of Nevada. He has now filed bankruptcy in the state of New York.
Okay. Well, what you're going to have to do, wherever he filed the bankruptcy, you'll have to hire a lawyer in that district. One of the things about Tennessee, we have Tennessee lawyers, and then there's Kentucky, and they have Kentucky lawyers. Sometimes you get a guy that's licensed both states, but it's very rare you'd have one in Tennessee that could operate in New York. It's cheaper, more effective, and you're going to have to file whatever claim there in New York. And this is another thing I'd like to tell the public. If you've got a judgment and they file bankruptcy, it is not absolute that it's discharged.
Right, that's exactly
You can
right.
call a lawyer and make a claim. And you know, there have been some lawyers who have filed bankruptcy, scares everybody to death. They think it's over, and then it's dismissed.
That's right.
And so take that. Squeaky door gets the oil. You move forward. Try to get you a lawyer always and advance your cause.
That's a great advice there. Okay, on line 3, I believe we have Bobby. Are you there, Bobby?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Okay,
what's your
Bob.
question for Kevin?
Yes, I do. Kevin, I had one of those hips, you know, striker recall hips.
Yes.
And I had one of them, and on the settlement, they want to take $30,000 right off the top because I'm over 70 years old, and they're going to send Medicare $20,000.
Okay.
But the first part, that sounds like discrimination to me. What do you have to say about it?
Well, you know, you'd have to look at the whole contract. You know, as a normal, lawyers charge a third, and it's still a good deal if that's within reason. I'm not familiar with one if they charged you $30,000 right off the top and then they took a third. I'd like to question and see what that was all about, if it was expenses. And there's nothing wrong with questioning your lawyer.
That's right.
Or having somebody say, hey, Nick, does this sound right to you? They're taking $30,000 off the top. I don't see what that fee's all about. Well, yes, we would question that. If we were getting $100,000 and they hit us for a $30,000, I'd say that's fair. That's the going rate. Let's rock and roll. Now, your question on discrimination, if they were setting you out as a class and we're just going to charge a $30,000 fee because you're 75, well, I think that is discrimination, and I think you may have a claim. They cannot separate you from your class based on sexual preference or orientation or whatever you're having to deal with. They can't do that.
Well, and as you're well aware, the insurance lobby is, you know, just huge here in the state of Tennessee.
And Nick, here's what we have to understand. When he says the insurance lobby is huge, they mean those guys are lobbying the legislators and they're writing laws to help protect the insurance industry. So the last vestige that helps the average working man are the lawyers. So, you know, they say, man, we hate lawyers, but everybody loves their lawyer. And I still believe that's true too. So when you're talking about tort reform, just remember the biggest buildings in any city are the insurance companies, and the little lawyers stand between you and injustice.
That's exactly right. All right, those of you that are still on the phone, please hold. We'll come back and get to your calls. We have a few vacant phone
all
lines.
lit up,
737 plus 737 7587. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back after this message.